Why are there so many shows starring Muppets and dozens of movies too? They said they'd watch everyone and they mean it. It's something that they've got to do. So now they've pledged you a lifelong commitment. The Muppets, Matthew and Sam.
Welcome to Commitment, the podcast where two friends have vowed to watch all things Muppets. I'm Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And this week, we are here to discuss the 6th episode of the Jim Henson Hour, which aired on July 9th, 1989, called Monster Maker, which I will say off the bat is a bit of a different episode for the Jim Henson Hour.
Mm-hmm.
In that it doesn't necessarily feel like Jim Henson had anything to do with it, and there's no Muppet television segment.
Oh, what did he not work on Monster Maker?
I think the Creature Shop did, but I didn't see his name anywhere in the credits.
Just his last name because of his son.
Correct. And Duncan Kenworthy is the producer who Jim has assigned to work on a lot of different things, has contributed so much to the Muppets, and his name is on this. And he, from what I remember of reading the Brian J. Jones biography, was largely put in charge of sort of the storyteller / second half of the Jim Henson Hour, as far as like, make it good, Duncan.
Right. But so was Jim super involved in episodes of The Storyteller?
He was more involved. He directed some of them, but
Yeah,
I think it was, his initial goal was to not be that involved and just to sort of like hand it off. But I think he ended up being slightly more involved than he intended to be.
Yeah, it does feel like the best in-case scenario for the Jim Henson Hour would be other people making stuff to send to him to show, and not him running all over the world, putting his hand up various things and making them talk.
What am I putting my hand in this week? I just got distracted reading Duncan Kenworthy's Muppet Wiki page because obviously he is, his credits include producing Dark Crystal, Tail Bunny Picnic, Storyteller, Living with Dinosaurs, Monster Maker, Fraggle Rock is the big one. And there's a line in Muppet Wiki that says Kenworthy's other credits as a producer include Love Actually, a film containing a scene inspired by Jim Henson's memorial.
Should I know off the top of my head what that refers to?
I mean, the only one I can think of that might be some overlap is the band in The Wedding, because Jim wanted like a marching band at his funeral.
That's exactly, according to comic book resources, that's the part. You're right.
Okay.
I assume they cited their sources in here somewhere.
Yeah, I'd be curious if Duncan Kenworthy said that, or if the writer or whoever of Love Actually was like, I got this idea from watching Jim Henson's memorial to put a band in a wedding. Because it doesn't seem as one-to-one. There's not a cited source on Muppet Wiki, so I'm assuming the source you found is probably the only source?
Richard Curtis attended that service, and on the director's commentary for Love Actually explained about the wedding scene. This was in fact inspired by Jim Henson's funeral, which was the most moving thing I've ever been to. And at the end of it, Frank Oz was talking and suddenly lifted up Kermit's puppet and started to sing the song called One Voice. And it turned out that all the guys in the memorial service had brought their puppets with them, and they lifted them up. And when you turned around and looked backwards, there were 50 puppets all singing, and Big Bird walked down the aisle. And they all came forward, and it was a massive chorus of puppets all singing. So, yeah, he was there, I guess.
Why?
Well, I think he was a British guy.
Well, I would actually say for sure that he's a British guy, Sam. You can't make bean if you're not British.
Yeah, he was in the industry, I think.
Okay. I mean, I guess it's the thing where you hear the story of Conan O'Brien was invited to the New York memorial, and you're like, well, how does that make sense? And then you hear the stories about him being friends with Lisa Henson and having met Jim before, and you're like, oh, okay, just being near the industry does get you on that list. But I guess, he had worked on Blackadder and all of those very British Rowan Atkinson related things. And maybe the comic relief. Maybe he had met some storyteller crew and folks through working just in England together.
I mean, he might have known Brian.
That's true.
How many people could possibly live in England?
Given, the Harry Potter movies and Game of Thrones and all those things, I feel like they have to reuse a lot of the same people because it's like, okay, well, this guy's already been a Doctor Who or he's already been a Harry Potter man and we can't reuse him in this. It's their version of Marvel. Like,
yeah, their multiverse.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You're like, okay, is this screenshot of David Tennant from a Harry Potter? Is it from a Doctor Who?
No,
is it from
idea.
Yeah.
58.6 million people. That's how many people live
that's
there.
a lot.
That's quite
a
few. Yeah.
I did want to add real quick, Sam, that I received a source from the Tough Pigs Discord of Jim Henson saying that Dog City was his favorite thing he ever did, and The Heartless Giant was his second favorite thing he ever did.
Okay.
It seems like, one, could be a bit of marketing speak, and two, also a little bit of a joke.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there is some Jim Henson Hour behind the scenes footage that just seems like somebody had a camera running as they walked around the set. So I'm not really sure the source of this. But there are clips of Jim recording segments that we have not seen. They must have re-recorded these. But it's a part of something to camera for an episode where he is saying, next week we'll see Dog City, which is maybe my favorite episode I've ever made or something like that. And then the following week, we'll see The Heartless Giant, which is maybe my second favorite thing I've ever made.
Oh, okay.
So it seems a little tongue-in-cheek, especially the Heartless Giant part, because the whole crew laughs at that afterwards. But I also think he says that Dog City is maybe one of his favorite episodes he's ever made. And so maybe he's talking specifically about the Jim Henson Hour, not in his whole catalog of work.
This is an interesting lesson in how we interpret history, And that's what we're really here for.
That's what we are here for. We are historians, if anything.
Yeah. Sarcasm doesn't come across well in the annals of history.
We've said so much shit on this podcast that if you just took the text of it and put it out there in the world,
we'd
be like, wow, those guys really want to have sex with Miss Piggy.
Well, okay. Not a good example. Because maybe.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
But it would be like, we don't know, George Washington was like, oh, I cannot tell a lie,
Yeah, he followed it up with, you know what I mean.
Could I tell any less of a lie?
Yeah, George Washington, really the Chandler of the founding fathers. Or maybe he meant it with his full heart, and then the crew laughed, and he was like, yeah, good joke, guys.
Yeah, this sucks.
So yeah, it seems to be from an outtake of something they must have refilmed and changed, because that's not an outro that we saw from an episode before the Dog City episode. So I think they just shot a lot of stuff that they didn't use for that show. And the person who shared that with me, his name is Grant. So thanks for sending that to me on the Tough Pigs Discord. And it is from a YouTube channel that is one of those that feels like it would just be pulled down at some point, but these videos have been up for 9 years. It's a YouTube channel called Henson Behind the Scenes. And a lot of it is just this fully unedited, like on the set of Fraggle Rock, on the set of Dog City footage that must be, I don't know, a Canadian crew member who had just been hanging out on set. And so I'm also wondering if like the person who uploaded these is also the person who filmed them, but I don't know if there's any information about that.
Interesting. And you've never seen this channel before?
No, I think if any of it came up in my prior searches, I wouldn't have put it on our list because it was about mostly stuff we hadn't seen yet. But I have saved this now so that way I can sort of skim through and see if there are things worth watching for us, because a lot of this is just completely unedited on set footage where nothing is really happening or you can't understand what people are saying. So I would not make us watch all of these, but there might be some nuggets of wisdom in there somewhere. But there are, if you go watch some of those videos, just some interesting glimpses behind the scenes of Dog City where you're just seeing, the whole set as people set up for shots. It's a lot of, that the 10 minutes before the shoot kind of moments.
Right.
Where you see Ted Danson getting ready to fight the pirates. You see Jim Henson getting ready for a portrait session, like getting his hair done and everything. I don't know. You could like sort of zen out and put these on and watch them for a while. So we are here today to discuss the Jim Henson Hour episode Monster Maker. But before we get into that, we actually have a special guest segment to open the show this week. Today on Commitment, we are joined by someone whose career has touched just about every corner of comedy. He is a writer, producer, performer, educator whose credits span from Mork and Mindy and Police Squad to a little movie our listeners may have heard of called The Muppets Take Manhattan. He's been a stand-up, a songwriter, a screenwriter, a playwright, an author. His book, Funny, the Book, was praised by Carl Reiner as the perfect bedside book to refer to anytime you want to smile. And Penn Jillette said, David Misch is one funny motherfucker. He has taught and spoken about comedy at institutions from USC to UCLA to the Smithsonian, Yale, Oxford, and I'm sure many, many more. We are so excited to have him today on Commitment to talk about his life in comedy, but also his work with Jim Henson and Frank Oz. So please welcome David Misch to Commitment.
Thank you. Please sit down. That's not necessary. I appreciate it, though. By the way, I want to be right up front about two of my credits, Muppets Take Manhattan and Saturday Night Live, both of which sound great and are great, but are not entirely unasterisked. Okay. So Muppets Take Manhattan, I got no official credit for. I did what we call the production rewrite. So the movie was all set. All the scenes had been mapped out and everyone knew how they were going to be shot. But Frank Oz wanted a polish. He wanted it funnier, and he wanted any improvements I could think of. So that's what I did. I worked for, I would say, a month or so on it with him, very closely with him. Every syllable had to go through Frank, and he ended up getting co-credit along with the other writers. Oh, my God, Patchett and Tarset, Tom Patchett and Jay Tarsis. And by the way, I remember I was sitting on a plane in first class because I was being flown for a gig, and there was a guy next to me, and he was shuffling papers, and I glanced over, and it was Tom Patchett, who I had rewritten. And I thought that was like a little awkward, like, hi, I rewrote you. And so I said nothing, and he said nothing. And we sat the entire flight never speaking to each other.
Oh, weird. Many
years later, I went to a play he had written, and afterwards pulled up the courage to say, Tom, I rewrote you. I hope you're not offended or anything. He said, I could give a shit. I got paid for it, you know?
I was wondering, if that is sort of the feeling amongst comedy writers who are writing so many things, who are often rewriting each other's work or being hired, that they are sort of expecting, my work's probably also going to be rewritten sometimes.
Totally. And actually, I was being wildly overly sensitive, but that's just me. I'm a very sensitive man. Because everyone's rewritten and everyone knows it. And why would you blame the other writer? They had nothing to do with it. They just got a gig. Mm-hmm. So it's nothing.
Your title that I've seen online is Special Consultant.
I was going to explain that. So basically, we went to arbitration afterwards, and I submitted all my pages, which were voluminous, and my rewrites, which were voluminous. I rewrote all the dialogue. And Frank helped, definitely. He helped in the sense of saying, no, do it better. But anyway, the Writers Guild said no, and they did it for a good reason. There's an official legal precedent in the Writers Guild for the initial writers. Mm-hmm. So you have to do a huge amount of rewriting. And one thing you have to rewrite is the characters and the scenes. And I didn't do that. The characters were already set and all the scenes were set. We knew exactly what happened in each scene. I just rewrote dialogue. So they said no. But Frank thought I had done a fine job and was very generous and invented that special consultant credit at the end, which, by the way, is completely illegal. They actually say in the Writers Guild contract, do not do anything like special consultant. That's bullshit and will come down hard on you.
So really, this is a sting operation. We're getting Frank Oz. We're finally bringing that man down.
We're getting Oz. How did you end up working on The Muppets Take Manhattan?
There was one of the producers of the movie was named Michael Pizer, wonderful guy, and he had been doing Woody Allen movies. And then what was it? I think it was that Scorsese movie, After Hours. I think he produced that because he was New York based and he knew New York like the back of his hand. And he told me, I've been used to being on the set for witty dialogue and suddenly we're having car chases and things like that. So he was excited about doing a different thing. And then he did the Muppets and he called me up. We were friends and said, the Muppets are doing this movie that has guest star cameos. Would you be interested? And I was young and hot and didn't particularly think the Muppets were that great. And I said, no, I'm just not interested. Thank you, though. And he said, David, listen to the list of cameos. Dustin Hoffman, Laurence Olivier, Richard Pryor, Lily Tomlin, Steve Martin, Michael Jackson. Trying to remember the list. Christopher Reeve, I think the list just went on and on.
A list of people notably not in the Muppets Take Manhattan.
Hang on just a moment. So when I picked myself off the floor, I said, yes, I'll do it for free. I'll pay you money. I'll do anything. So we started writing, and I wrote a scene for Lily Tomlin as the doctor. Mm-hmm. And I was getting to some of the other big stars. And then the Muppets, I don't know if it was Frank specifically, got a call from Dustin Hoffman. Hoffman was one of the biggest stars in the world at that time. And he had been planning as a joke to do his impression of a very famous producer named Robert Evans, who produced The Godfather, among many other fantastic movies. And he had a very distinctive voice. And Hoffman imitated him at parties, and people just loved it. And he thought as a joke he would do it for this movie. And he called Frank and said, I've been thinking about it, and I'm afraid he might get offended, so I'm not going to do it, and I'm dropping out. Immediately, every other person on the list dropped out.
Oh, no.
Every other person. And we ended up with the ones you see now, Brooke Shields, Joan Rivers, Dabney Coleman, basically all the top talent in somewhere. I mean, lovely, talented people, but not A-list movie stars.
Well, when a role changes from Lily Tomlin to Linda Lavin, is there an additional rewrite there? Or was it like the jokes still worked just with a different celebrity cameo?
Very perceptive question. The answer is huge change. So I learned this first. I guess I didn't learn it so well because I had to learn it twice. On Saturday Night Live, I was asked to write a sketch, a parody of the old game show Password. And Marty Short was going to play Robin Williams as a guest. And the joke was that he couldn't stop talking and no one ever could answer a question. And his partner lost everything because he was talking so much and so fast. So I had just come off Mork and Mindy, and I knew how to write for Robin Williams. So I wrote a Robin Williams bit for Marty. And Marty came to me and said, David, my name is Martin Short. It's not Robin Williams. I can't do that. You have to adjust it so that I can do it. And I thought, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's
anyway,
tricky.
Linda Lavin took a look at the Lily Tomlin pages and said, I can't do that. I don't do a million different voices. That's ridiculous. So please change. So we changed it. And just one other note on a personal level here, which is the whole idea is, as you probably know, as your listeners well know, Kermit gets hit by a car and gets amnesia. But he also has some physical injuries, and I needed to give him some physical injuries. And my wife was a doctor and still is, except she's retired. But anyway, she wrote that section. So she did the, oh my gosh, what is it? Rotator cuff displacement or something like that. That was her line. And Linda couldn't get it. That was too medicalese for her. So we wrote it on a piece of paper and put it above Kermit's head. And I'll tell you one other thing about that scene. It was shot at a hospital in New York that had decommissioned its second floor. Middle of summer, no air conditioning, easily 100 degrees in there. We were there for 4, 5, 6 hours. Jim was there under the bed, sticking his hand up through the bed for Kermit. And when he came out, it was like he had just come out of the shower. He was just nothing but rivulets of sweat all over his body. Anyway, so that was a simultaneously fantastic and horrible experience. But we did the first shot, and it seemed to go pretty well. And Frank was going to say, cut print. And the DP said, no, director of photography said, no, we can't do it. We have to do it again. And Frank said, why? And he said, come over here and look. So I was sitting there too on the set, and Frank wanted me there for every scene, which was wonderful. I'm sorry, and Jim too. Anyway, so we all gathered around the monitor, and there, as you can see in the actual movie, there's this sort of painting up to the side of Kermit's bed. And there clearly visible with his notepad and pen, is me reflected in the frame of the painting.
Wow.
So you almost got special consultant and
I know
portrait
Guy
in the hospital room.
I think co-star would have been appropriate.
Yeah. Kermit the Frog, David Misch.
Miss Piggy.
Yeah. So you alluded to the fact that you weren't maybe super into the Muppets before you came to write for them. Obviously, you're working in comedy at the same time they're working on comedy, having a TV show. Were the Muppets something you just actively disliked?
No.
Oh,
I just saw kid stuff. I didn't really pay much attention to them. I think if I had, I would have been into it more. But I just dismissed them. Also, I was there, and few of you people may remember this. The Muppets were on the first season of SNL.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a little section of their own, 5-6 minutes each episode. And the other cast members, I think reflecting my assholishness, hated the Muppets, and they felt demeaned that these stupid puppets were on the show with them, and they were really mean. And this was actually in the SNL movie a year or two ago. Yeah. They were really actively mean to Jim Henson. I think they played a few mean practical jokes on him. Anyway, so I think I reflected that general sort of "I'm better than this" attitude.
We watched all those, and they're pretty interesting because you can tell on the screen they bring that kind of feud to as it's becoming clear that the Muppets are going to get kicked off the show. The Muppets start to react to that, and they start to kind of like sneak into other skits and be like, we could do this, we could do that. And they have like a bunch of actually really touching moments with Lily Tomlin where she kind of like sings with them. So it was much more, it was like very complicated and interesting, but some of the actors you could tell were like, get these guys out of here.
I feel like Chevy Chase was probably leading the way of like, why are these felt things on my stage?
Yeah. You said you had an asterisk for your work on SNL too. What was the asterisk
Well,
say?
I was only there for 2 episodes. That's what it was. They had a guest writer program very briefly, and I was one of them. And all the other guest writers only got 1 week, and I got 2. But I still didn't really get much on the air, almost at all. I was hired essentially for one sketch. My manager, who managed Billy Crystal, this is for 84, 85.
Like this is the first Dick Ebersol year?
The only Dick Ebersol year, as far as I'm aware. Yeah. And Dick was a piece of work as well. But that was the year with an incredible cast. All of Spinal Tap, Crystal and Chris Guest and Marty Short. And what's his name? Michael McKean.
Yes.
Anyway, and some other great people. But anyway, the thing is, I was hired because my manager thought I had written the funniest sketch he had ever read. And they also managed Woody Allen, and, they knew from comedy. So that was pretty cool. And he wanted to see it produced. But that year was an election year, 84. And SNL was not in 8H for much of the year.
Oh,
because the news crew took it over because they needed a bigger studio than usual, and we were in a small studio, and my sketch had a horse, and they couldn't fit the horse.
Oh no.
So I never did that sketch.
The funniest sketch
sketch in the world has been lost to time.
We'll never hear it.
You can look at it on my website.
Oh, we will at least we can read it.
Yeah, you can read it. So.
So when it came time then to write for Muppets, having not been super familiar with them, kind of maybe casting them off, did you treat writing for the cameos or the dialogue for the Muppets any differently than writing for humans on Mork and Mindy, or was it easier or harder to write for puppets?
Interesting question. I don't think it really entered my mind because the puppets are characters, and you write for the character, and I'd written for some pretty silly characters in my life, so that didn't worry me. The thing there, this is going broader. I think I've sort of answered your question, but the broader answer is this movie was very specific. As you may know, Great Muppet Caper, which came before it, I had seen Great Muppet Caper and thought it was really good. I liked that movie. John Cleese was in it. It was very clever and witty. And I should tell you my Gary Marshall story after this. But anyway, the lesson that the Muppets took from it was don't do that. It didn't do well at the box office. It was a big disappointment. And so Frank thought that the way to overcome whatever problem Caper had, when again, I thought it was a terrific movie, was to be less funny, specifically to be less silly, to be less clever. And he wanted it to be warmer and more quote unquote human. So whenever I came up with a goofy gag, he would laugh and appreciate it and say no. I know I had many of them. The one that sticks in my head is when he goes to the Empire State Building to go up and look over the big city and admit his failure that he hadn't been able to sell his show. First of all, he goes to the elevator and calls for it, and the elevator door opens, and 2 gigantic gorilla legs walk out. He doesn't even notice them. And then he goes up there and he gives this impassioned speech. I'm going to get you yet, big city. I'm going to make it. We're going to be successful. And at this dramatic moment, you hear way in the distance, shut up, we're trying to sleep. Anyway, those were things that he just thought were too silly. And that was a straight through line for the whole movie. Yeah. And afterwards, I think a year or two afterwards, when we were talking, he said, I think it could have been funnier. Well, it's a successful movie,
Oh, it's honestly, it's my favorite of the 3 original Muppet movies. Do you have a favorite moment that stayed in the film?
Oh, absolutely. The meat makes me ill, Gil scene where he's talking with the other ad agency people. And they're all, by the way, many of you would have gotten this. They're all imitating Jim Henson. That's the joke in the scene. That thing. That's what Jim did all the time. So it was 5 Jim Hensons in that scene, along with Jim Henson.
Then that's a great silly scene.
Yeah.
Is that something that when you're doing that, Jim is aware that it's supposed to be him?
Yeah. Okay. But remember, that was not my idea. That was the idea of the other puppeteers who were just sort of gently ribbing him. Also, Ocean Breeze soap, which I made up there, later became an actual product. There was an Ocean Breeze soap. And one of my favorite lines, aside from meat makes me ill, Gil, is the first pitch for the Ocean Breeze soap slogan by the frogs who are trying to succeed at this is Ocean Breeze soap. It's just like taking an ocean cruise, only there's no boat and you don't go anywhere. To which Kermit responds, and this is my actual favorite line, seems a bit long. That's the problem.
That is one of those scenes that works really well, but does feel like you could have humans in that scene saying those same lines, and it works just as well.
It's a sketch.
Yeah, they just happen to be Muppets.
Yeah. And there was recently a public reading of the Muppets Take Manhattan script, which was Zoomed, and I watched it. And the guy who did it, he asked to see my original script, and he put in one of the scenes that was cut, the Linda Lavin scene I wrote with all those different voices. And it was the first time in 40 years later I get to hear it. Yeah. So that was cool. What was it I was going to say?
You mentioned Gary Marshall.
Oh, yeah, Gary Marshall. That's right. So Mork and Mindy, I wrote my first script. And Gary Marshall, who was the executive producer of the show, he wasn't on the set all the time or anything, but he certainly paid attention to it. But he had 3 other hit shows going at the same time, unprecedented in TV history. Anyway, he called me into his office, which I remember was very leathery and woody. And he sat me down and he said, Misch, I read your script. And I said, yes. And he said, it's witty. And I said, thank you. And he said, no, we don't do wit. We do funny. And I realized that he didn't want people smiling in appreciation at the cleverness of the dialogue. He wanted people to be making that barking sound that resulted in his buying another house.
I've heard a similar quote from Mel Brooks, I think, which is wit is shit, funny is money.
That's true. Yes. Anyway, wit is not always shit, but it was for that particular show. And I snuck in some wit here and there, but funny is very, in addition to being money, is also very satisfying. And also people laughing out loud is a wonderful sound to hear.
Yeah.
And remember, we got to hear it. We got to hear actual laughter because it was a live show. And it was wonderful. We had about 300 people in our audiences, and they loved it. But, Robin Williams was an exhausting human being. And they would come in. they would come in thinking, oh my God, I get to see Robin Williams for free for like, what, an hour or two? Well, no, it's more like 3 or 4. And by the end, people were staggering out like they'd just been trapped in an elevator for 16 hours.
Yeah.
It was just like, you can't laugh that much that long and be happy.
Through Muppets Take Manhattan, is that how you came to work on stuff like Inner Tube and with Frank on Little Shop of Horrors? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We got along really well. And then Jim grabbed me for Inner Tube. Frank had very little, I'm not sure it had anything to do with that.
I don't think he did either,
yeah. But Jim had seen my work and had met me on set and everything. So he asked me to work with him on that. And when I say work with him, one of the fascinating things about Jim Henson is he had a tremendous reverence for craft. Mm-hmm. He loved people who knew how to do a job and did it. What was interesting was once you had done your job, and my craft job was to put pieces of words on pieces of paper. And when that job was, and during my time doing that job, he and I were like best buddies. Every shot. How'd you like that, David? Anything you want to change, David? And we were working hand in glove really tightly. And I was like, wow, Jim Henson's my good friend now. The minute my job was done, I never spoke to him again. Yeah. And I found out that was the way it was with everyone. Again, it wasn't negative. It wasn't personal in that way. It was just like, he really loved you when you were doing your work and doing it well. But then he had something else to do. And he did something else.
What was the directive for Inner Tube? How did he explain it to you, or what was the idea behind it in his?
The idea was
mind?
He really wanted to break out from Kermit and the Muppets. He wanted to do something different. And Jim, this is one of his many incredible positive qualities, is he wanted to keep up with the culture. Yeah. He wanted this to be electric. He wanted to be, if he didn't have the word then, but digital. He wanted to invent an electronic puppet, which he did. I can't remember the name of it now.
Waldo C. Graphic.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Anyway, and he wanted every segment of this show to be unusual. The basic idea I thought was cool too. That's why I signed on. In those days, cable was king. And the idea of cable was 150 channels and nothing's on. Yeah. But anyway, 150 channels. So the idea is that the guest star for each show would get, at the beginning, sucked into the TV and bounce around between the different channels, which I immediately realized meant sketch show. Every channel was a different sketch. And they could be any length, and they could be anything. And I thought, what a wonderful opportunity. So I seized it, and I thought did a good job. But there was one person who did not think it was a good job. I think Jim liked it, but his manager, remind me.
Bernie Brillstein?
Bernie Brillstein did not like it. And that killed it. And then there was a biography of Jim Henson many years later. And in it, the guy who wrote the biography did a short section on Inner Tube and said that the script was dark and depressing.
For what it's worth, I will say I just reread that section before we were talking to you. I think he is quoting a producer that worked with Jim. I don't think it's him.
I thought it was him. Okay.
I believe so. Brian J. Jones is the guy who wrote the biography. I think he's quoting Larry Merkin, who was a producer on Fraggle Rock.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But yes, I believe Larry Merkin was the one who had unkind words for the original script, which the original script is available to read on your website, which, is the intention was that this would be a 30-minute pilot that was obviously eventually cut down to a 10-minute pitch reel.
Exactly.
Was that something that you knew was going to happen?
Yeah, and they asked me to help on that, and I did. Okay. I helped. But, we lost a lot of good stuff, but that's life. I understand the need for a sizzle reel, as we call it. So we did it. But the other thing I would say in my defense is if you read that script or see the test reel and say, that's not funny, I can't argue with that. But to say it's dark and depressing, that, my friend, and this is a technical screenwriter term, is bullshit. It's not dark. It's not depressing.
I don't think I got dark and depressing from it when we watched it.
Well, we've actually
you can say it failed, but not that.
Yeah.
We've run into this actually a couple times throughout our podcast and just talking to other Muppet fans, is there are times where certain projects just hit certain Muppet fans in the wrong way. And it seems like dark, cynical, pessimistic seems to be a common feeling that pings people in the wrong way. And I'm in the same boat where like, I don't always see what they're seeing when they're like, this was too dark, this was too whatever. I'm like, I thought it was fun. I liked it. I don't know what you're seeing, what I didn't see there, but it is interesting that is something that people are like, we're on the lookout with Muppets, that maybe some people just have an idea of what the Muppets is in their head, and it's not always what the Muppets need to be. But in that moment, you know, he clearly didn't love the direction.
Well, I think if I can try and analyze it, I think many Muppets fans associate the Muppets with positivity, that it's joy, that it's wonderful. But, you know, I know a Muppets project in which the lead character, Kermit, utterly fails through most of the movie. It's Muppets Take Manhattan. So why is that not dark and depressing? He goes up to the top of the Empire State Building. I think some people are thinking, is he going to throw himself off? Because he feels he's failed his friends. So, you know, it reminds me of when I took my daughter, who was like 4, to see Beauty and the Beast, and she really enjoyed it. And on the way out, though, she said, but why do they always have to have villains? And I said, think about it, sweetie. There's no story with no villain.
Yeah. Right.
So,
we wouldn't be here watching this movie if it was just, there was this thing about the Beast and Belle. Everything worked out perfectly.
Yeah, right. And not just worked out, but everything went great from the get-go.
Yeah.
There was just never a problem. So, there's a point when there's nothing really remotely similar to Kermit's depression in Inner Tube. It's just that this guy gets lost inside and he wants to get home.
Yeah,
but I know another movie where that happened, and The Wizard of Oz is still referred to occasionally today.
I mean that the Muppets are succeeding in spite of stuff. They are underdogs from the beginning of everything.
You can't triumph if you haven't had an oomph first.
Yeah, and there's plenty of dark stuff in Fraggle Rock too. That show can get pretty dark.
And Dark Knight.
Yeah.
No, wait, I'm sorry. What am I thinking of?
Dark Crystal, yeah.
Dark Crystal, right.
Dark Crystal's incredibly dark. It's about like the last of his species trying to...
There's definitely contradictions at times when even Jim Henson himself, I feel like sometimes is talking about too much violence on TV, or he wants to be uplifting and have light things, and then he'll make something like the Dark Crystal, or he'll introduce some violent scenes into the Jim Henson Hour, and you're like, okay, so you had some wiggle room on those. I'm curious, like, speaking of, Jim Henson and how he worked, was it different working with Frank and Jim, mostly Frank in 1984 versus Jim in 1989 on Inner Tube? Like, those are not that far apart in years, but as far as the Muppets are concerned, those are very different time periods in like the career of Jim Henson. And so I'm curious, was it any different working with Frank versus working with Jim, or just working across those different eras?
Interesting question. I can't say there was a night and day difference. Jim and Frank obviously have different styles. They're different human beings, but again, not night and day. They worked together. They were best friends for many years, and I think their basic goals were very similar. By the way, Frank told me, I don't know why my mind went to this, but I didn't know that Frank had originally been an actor. And he said, you want to know why I decided to stop acting? I said, sure. And he said, well, I got called in for a commercial, and I opened the door to the casting room, and there are 30 tall, thin, balding guys. And I thought, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, there's only one puppet pig. You get to be the only puppet pig, sir.
Yeah. But I think both Frank and Jim, but maybe especially Jim, really liked to be cutting edge. And he resented it when people thought of him as like the mentor of the soft, safe Muppets, because he didn't see that at all. He really saw himself as breaking barriers. And I would say he was right. He always was trying to push the edge.
Yeah.
Most of his non-Muppets projects were not as successful. But that happens. I mean, success is not guaranteed. Paul McCartney has written so many songs in the last 20 years and so many projects that have not worked out very well.
Yeah.
Does that make him less of a genius? No, but it means that you don't always succeed.
It means also he's still got to play Hey Jude.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Jim's still going to pull out that Kermit puppet as much as it feels like. I think, like with that era of Dark Crystal and Labyrinth, and then around the time of 87 when Inner Tube is being worked on, he's also working on The Storyteller. Like, it feels like in some ways Jim is trying to run away from the Muppets and find his next thing.
Not in some way. That's exactly right. And by the way, that gets us back to Inner Tube. The whole idea of Inner Tube is no Kermit. That was rule number one, no Kermit. By the end, when it looked like it wasn't going to sell, Kermit.
They put some Kermit in
so
there. Yeah.
that was that.
Yeah, Jim Henson Hour definitely has, you can see the seeds of Inner Tube in the Jim Henson Hour episodes, but definitely has Kermit. It has Gonzo. It has more Muppets.
And it feels like he's doing it against his will, and those are the weaker parts of the episodes where he's like, I guess I got to put these guys in it, or else no one's going to put anything on TV.
And I think it's sort of visible, and you have picked up on it. And I don't know if Frank would be horrified by that. He put his heart on his sleeve and did it the way he felt. And in Inner Tube, the original thing had no Muppets at all. It was all new stuff. And I thought all the new stuff was really clever. I really thought it was a terrific idea. He also got and I'm sorry, I'm so damn old now, I can't remember anyone's name, but who is the guy who did this, the live guy who did the bit where he made things and they sort of, they weren't even animated, but I think he did some things with toilet paper. I can't think of his name.
Paul
now.
Zaloom.
Paul Zaloom.
Right.
He was, so I was sort of I lived in New York, and I was into the alternate, we would call it alt comedy scene now. And Paul Zaloom was a pretty well-known lower downtown artist, and he was very inventive, very clever. Jim saw him somewhere and brought him on, and he was great. And we worked together hard on his bit, and I thought his bit was terrific. So, I mean, Jim was always taking chances in that way.
I'm curious, like, looking back on your time with the Muppets, we talked a little bit of how some jobs are just a gig, you're getting paid, it's nice, but you move on. How do you look back on your time working with the Muppets?
I loved it. And I think maybe the most exciting moment was when I entered Muppet Mansion, this house on the Upper East Side. And the whole house was Muppetized, and it had this gigantic, it must have been 10 feet tall, a hanging thing from the center of the house that went down. So when you went up the staircase, you could see all the little intricate parts of it. It was just this amazing sculpture, sort of Klaus Oldenburg-like, but not, that Jim had supervised. I don't know if he literally made it. So that was just being in the Muppet Mansion was fantastic. And then I got to go into the innermost sanctum, which is the Muppet workroom, where no one was allowed in. And I said, why is that? And they said, because you will see 30 Miss Piggies, and that destroys the illusion.
Not allowed.
So children were especially not allowed in.
Right.
So it was great to see that. And then to get to know the puppeteers and the difficulties they had, the physical toll on doing this puppetry, and their cleverness, and oh my God, all the ad libs, most of which were dirty. And that actually, I have a bunch of Manhattan stories, so I can tell them, but here's one that popped into my mind. So the scene in Central Park with Gregory Hines, first of all, it was like Jim had a direct line to God, and we had the most perfect day for shooting a movie in the history of movies. It was just like 75 degrees, not a cloudless sky, beautiful clouds, and but blue sky and long day and perfect weather. So that was great. Gregory Hines, nicest human being alive, and really professional, did everything great. But there were some scenes where just Kermit and Piggy were talking, and a crowd gathered, maybe 100, 150 people, and everyone was quiet and respectful. But when they called cut, Jim and Frank with their hands still high in the air above them, with the puppets on the end of them, started ad-libbing. Mostly dirty, mostly sex. And it was utterly hilarious. And the audience was just howling with laughter. And I pulled myself away from looking at Jim and Frank to look at the crowd. And I noticed their eye lines. All of them were looking up in the air. They were ignoring the two gigantic 6'2", 3 men in front of them, looking only at the inanimate pieces of felt on their hands, because those pieces of felt had become human.
That is really amazing. And something that people point out on talk shows and stuff, where it's like, or sometimes they'll like hold a microphone up to the puppet, and then the puppet has to be like, I'm actually not talking.
I'm down here.
You can't mic the puppet. That's not going to do anything.
By the way, I talked about the physical toll. So I worked, as you mentioned, a little bit on Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah.
And I met Brian Henson, who did the plant.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in tremendous pain. He had to put himself into such positions to manipulate that plant. He was inside the plant. And I really got an appreciation for how much work great puppetry is.
We've watched a couple things where Jim has mentioned, like, yes, my son, I had to cram my son into this puppet, or I had to cram him under the, so he's really bending himself around. You worked on the alternate ending to Little Shop of Horrors, or did you?
I did. Well, it wasn't the alternate. It was what we like to call the ending.
The ending. Yes, that's right.
So the whole thing was just like in the play, which I had seen and loved.
Right.
Everyone on Earth dies, including the cast.
Yeah.
And it was great in the play. No one had a problem with it. And I think what happened was the plant eats them all and kills them. But then when the plant opens its mouth to sing at the finale or something, you could see the cast members inside the mouth, which was great. So it's like they're not really dead. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Frank was loyal to the play, and the ending was the plant destroying the Earth, and he hired me to come up with funny ways to destroy the city, really. Mm-hmm. And I came up with a few things that when the special 25th anniversary DVD came out, I was reminded of, because I'd never seen it put together. And there was one where there's a giant outdoor advertisement of someone smoking with the smoke rings coming out. And I can't remember now, but I had a funny way of killing that. Anyway, the movie was finished, and there was a preview. I was not there for the preview, but Frank said it was one of the worst previews he'd ever seen in his life.
Oh, man. And
the way he and everyone else, and I agreed, interpreted it was, you can't kill our heroes. You can't kill the love couple and everyone else. That's horrible. So he came up with the ending you see now. As far as I know, he came up with it himself, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was great. I thought it was better than what we had. So, I worked on it, and I got a free trip to London with my wife. And we got to be driven out to Pinewood Studios every day, which is where they shot James Bond and all the great British movies of 30 years ago. And so that was another great thrill.
I kind of like the ending where everybody dies. That's my preference. Yeah.
And I know for years, like you couldn't find it. It wasn't out there. And then eventually they released like the work print edition where you could watch it, but it was black and white. And then now you can watch it in 4K, and it's great, and you can see it fully restored. And so
it's still a work print to some degree. There are lines and things like that, and the animation was going to be made even better. Right? But it looks good.
This is a totally cliche question, but do you have any like advice for people who might want to get into writing comedy, or like how do you be funny?
Well, I teach a class. That's the one I'm doing in Paris next week, which is about it's called How Comedy Works. And the answer to the question is, can you make someone funny, is simple. It's no, you cannot make someone funny, but you can make someone funnier. Mm-hmm. And the way you get funnier is to learn how to do it. And learn how to do it, you learn how it's been done. Mm-hmm. So you study everyone from Chaplin and Keaton up to Bo Burnham. And there are certain things that keep reoccurring. There are certain ways in which you can get people to laugh. Some of them are easy, simplistic, and end up putting you on the wrong path of just imitating other people. But you still have to learn those things before you can move on, like Jim did, try and explore new ways of doing things that reflect your personal take on the world. I think I remember when I was in college, I said to an advisor that I wanted to be a writer, and she said, then what you want to do is read. And read as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And that was great advice. And to people who want to learn how to do comedy, I say watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And don't silo yourself off to contemporary people. By all means, go back, because this is one of my favorite lines is a guy reads Hamlet for the first time. His friend says, how'd you like it? And he says, it's nothing but a bunch of quotations. And the fact is, once you learn the history of comedy, almost all contemporary comedy is nothing but a bunch of quotations.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we have seen even just that of going back through this podcast and watching so many early Muppet things where we're like, oh, it feels like they're kind of inspired by that other thing that we already know. And then we realize, oh, this actually happened like 30 years earlier.
Yeah.
So that was already in the pop culture and people were already doing references like that, before we learned about them.
Yeah.
Which is not surprising, but you go back and watch even Jim when he was doing Sam and Friends in the, late 50s, early 60s.
I've seen those shows, yeah.
And there's so much that's in there that the seed of the comedy that would become the Muppets is already present.
Right.
It's exciting because you see, oh, that's where they got,
Yeah.
I was teaching, and I was talking at a high school about comedy, and I played Buster Keaton's most famous stunt where the house falls on him. And this kid raised his hand and said, he stole that. I said, really? I didn't think he had stole that. And he said, no, I'm sure of it. And then at the end of the class, he came up to me and I said, oh, no, I remember now. That was in Arrested Development. And I said, you do know Arrested Development was 60 years after Buster Keaton.
Yeah, big Arrested Development fan Buster Keaton was.
Stole everything from
Yeah. Well, that was, the first time I ever saw Casablanca in a theater with a crowd of people and heard everyone laughing, I was like, I never realized this movie had jokes in it when I was watching it at home by myself.
Yeah.
And then watching it with a crowd, I was like, oh, yeah, that is funny.
That's funny.
There is lighthearted moments throughout that movie. And it's just, going back and revisiting the classics and, when possible, with a group of people who also get to appreciate them.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This
pleasure.
has been amazing. And what would you like people to check out of the thousands of things you've done throughout the years?
Well, if you go to the difficult to remember davidmisch.com, that's M-I-S-C-H, first part of Meshuggah, you can see everything I'm doing. And the website is far too big. One of my friends saw it for the first time and called me back and said it was too much. My brain was exploding. I had to stop. So don't.
It's the Robin Williams of websites, is what you're saying.
Yes.
It will exhaust you.
On the front page, there's a list of all the talks I'm giving, and I invite you to come to them. They're fun. I mean, by Zoom. And but I've done some fun things. I'm just thinking. First of all, if you haven't seen Duckman, I do recommend it. It was a terrific show. We were very proud of it. My good friends, Jeff Reno and Ron Osborne, who wrote that Brad Pitt movie, the early Brad Pitt, Anthony Hopkins movie about Brad Pitt being deaf. I can't think of the title. Anyway, they wrote that, and they were on West Wing and many other shows, and they said Duckman was their best writing experience because we could do anything, and we did. And Jason Alexander, there turned out to be nothing he couldn't do. There was nothing at all. He could sing. He could dance, although that wasn't so visible with an animated show.
Less important for Duckman.
Yeah. But he could. We did an episode that I wrote, which was a parody of Dostoevsky, because how children's animation loves parodies of Dostoevsky.
Of course, that's right.
And he just, when he saw that he got to speak in a Russian accent, he almost salivated visibly. And that was a hilarious episode. Check out Duckman, and that's probably it.
All right, Duckman.
All right. Well, thank you again so much for being with us today here on Commitment.
My pleasure.
We want to thank David for joining us today. And Sam, it's that time in the episode where I say, hey, what do we watch this week?
We watched the Jim Henson Hour episode Monster Maker, original air date July 9th, 1989. Almost the entire hour is taken up by the movie Monster Maker, but it has a brief intro and outro in which Jim talks about the creature shop and how large a team of puppeteers it takes to make a puppet seem alive. Monster Maker, the feature presentation, is about Matt. What a stupid name. A 14-year-old British boy who
is a very common 80s boy name. And everyone named Matt should get some respect on this podcast.
Well, this Matt doesn't get a lot of respect from anybody, really.
That's true.
He's a 14-year-old British boy who lives and works with his parents at their gas station. But what Matt really wants to do is be a special effects wizard like his hero, Chancey Bello. Matt spends his evenings in his room shirking his schoolwork to build mechanical workings for puppets. Also, very conveniently, Chancey's special effects studio is in Matt's hometown. One day, Chancey Bello comes into their gas station, but Matt is too starstruck to say anything to him. Luckily, Chancey leaves his credit card behind, so Matt travels to Chancey's shop, which is called Chance Effects, to return it to him. But he also has an ulterior motive. Matt has brought along a little set of mechanical puppet legs, which he shows off to Chancey's team. They're all very impressed, and eventually the big man himself comes out and, with some urging from his employees, agrees to hire Matt, who, by the way, is pretending to be 16 years old and not in school. He's actually 14 years old and in school. So every day from then on, Matt ditches school and heads to the creature shop where he works and learns more about the shop and the people there. Chancey shows Matt his greatest and most mysterious work, a huge, half-completed, incredibly lifelike dragon robot that Chancey calls the Ultra Gorgon. One night, Matt sneaks into the Ultra Gorgon's locked room to admire the puppet, and it springs to life. It promises Matt that, if he spurns his life and his family and devotes himself to his craft, the Ultra Gorgon will make sure that Matt gets rich and famous. Matt declines, and the monster chases him out with a breath of fire. Eventually, all of Matt's school skipping catches up with him, and his dad confronts him. He tells Matt that he's wasting his life and that from now on, he will drive Matt directly to school to make sure that he is going to school. But Matt's dad is no angel either. Matt has witnessed his dad talking to and hanging out with, like, a rough crowd, I guess, doing some mysterious late-night welding with some bad guys.
I think they're unwelding a safe.
Oh, they're unwelding a safe.
I think they're breaking into a safe. I think they brought him a safe to break into for them.
Okay. I thought they were just like hanging out.
I think they're like bank robbers.
They're definitely robbers of some sort. Yeah. So he's hanging out with this rough crowd, and Matt's dad also goes to Chance Effects to confront Chancey about Matt. And while he's there, he kind of lightly shakes Chancey down for Matt's pay. And then while he's doing that, he sees Chancey take the cash out of a safe that's filled with a bunch of money. So a few nights later, Matt hears his dad telling his friends, his bank robber friends, about the safe. Matt tries to call the shop and warn them, but there's nobody there. So Matt rides his bike over to the shop to try and stop them. His dad sees him leaving. He's worried because he knows his friends are mean guys, and he follows after Matt. So at the shop, the thieves break in, they loot the safe, and then they're kind of wandering around and they end up in the Ultra Gorgon's room. But Matt has already beaten them there and has begged the dragon for help. The Gorgon chases the villains off with a burst of flame, and then Matt's dad runs in, and the Ultra Gorgon grabs him and lifts him up and says, "Hey, I'll kill this guy for you if you want me to, Matt." And Matt's like, "Don't kill my dad." And upon saying, "Don't kill my dad," basically, Chancey steps out of the shadows to reveal that the Gorgon wasn't real and that he had a secret set of controls hidden behind the scenes, I guess, to teach Matt a lesson. So Matt and his father embrace, and Chancey drives them home, but they're seemingly followed by the shadow of a flying Ultra Gorgon. But that's probably just a metaphor, I would guess.
Yeah, we see enough fantasy segments of Matt imagining the Gorgon flying around that I'm like, I think they want it to feel sort of this, is he alive? Is he real? Right. Is he not? But I land on the side of he's not
He's alive in
real.
all of our hearts in a way.
Yes, the sweetest Jim Henson creature of all time, the Ultra Gorgon.
Yeah, the murderous dragon with metal teeth.
It's worth noting that the star of this might be a little boy who's playing a character named Matt, But really, the star of this is Mr. Harry Dean Stanton.
Hell yeah.
Playing Chancey Bello.
Uh-huh.
And one, Chancey Bello is the most British name for a non-British guy I've ever heard.
Yeah. Little boy like grew up in the mountains or Virginia or something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, Chancey Bello, played by Harry Dean Stanton, who you have seen somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
He is just one of those guys who during his life did literally everything.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even know how to describe Harry Dean Stanton. What is your, I guess, first movie that comes to mind when you think of Harry Dean Stanton?
I think of him in Repo Man. And I think of him in Pretty in Pink.
Yeah. Pretty in Pink is definitely one that comes to mind for me too. I
think maybe Alien is up there too.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe Alien's even first. He was in Avengers. He sweeps up. He's like a janitor or something in the Avengers. Is that right? I feel like being in the Avengers makes it so that 100% of people on planet Earth have at least seen his face.
Yes. That's the thing is I think you've seen this face. You've probably thought he was 80 years old forever because I feel like he always just played an older guy, even when he was in his 40s and 50s. And he's just very good.
Yeah.
In this, even. Like, I think...
Yeah, he's great in this.
He is maybe the best actor we've seen on the Jim Henson Hour by far.
I think that's true.
And something I realized, I think, this week watching this, which it makes sense for this episode, but something I realized I've been thinking about the Jim Henson Hour is every episode we watch, we discuss in this way of like, well, okay, if this was the first one, if this had been watched in this order, maybe we would have liked it more. And I realize what's happening is we're looking at each episode of this show like it's a new pilot for this show to try and prove that somehow this could work. And I don't think that's how TV is supposed to work, guys. But
yeah,
this episode was one where just the Monster Maker part and Jim's little intro outro, I had a moment where I said, oh man, I'd watch that show.
It feels more like normal TV stuff than it feels like the Disney, like the, what's that called? The Wonderful World of Disney kind of model. Yeah. More than a lot of stuff that we've seen where he's just there for a second. He's like, here's my puppet. Isn't it cool? And then at the end, he's like, we do this. And a lot of guys are responsible for it. But then in the middle, there's just the TV movie. So it definitely does feel like, I think what we do is we look at Muppet television and we're like, what are you trying to do here? And then sometimes the rest of it's just like, okay, that was fine. Like the Lighthouse thing, Lighthouse Island was fine. Dog City's fine.
This is maybe closer to Jim's original idea of doing just one thing every week and letting it be that thing. And then next week, maybe it's a Muppet thing. Maybe it's something else. But this being just Jim special, Jim outro, feels like it gets to feel cohesive in a way that everything else just feels like we're distracting from Lighthouse Island with Muppets, or we don't have enough time to fill with Dog City, so let's add a little bit over here. Whereas this just feels a little bit more like this shouldn't have been the first episode because I think it would have set up really weird expectations.
It would have been really confusing, yeah.
But I think had this been the first episode that people saw of the show, they maybe would have had more hope for it. I guess I'm showing my hand a little bit there, Sam, but I liked this.
I think I just liked it too. I feel like when the bank robbing stuff started towards the end, I was kind of like, meh, I'm not as interested in this. I was expecting, and I shouldn't expect anything ever, but I was
in life or in Jim Henson Hour?
Both.
Okay.
I was expecting the monsters to be alive and to teach him important life lessons. And I think that would have been, I feel like at the end it was kind of like the through line of don't abandon your family doesn't entirely hold together, especially when your dad is an evil bank robber.
Yeah, I think, and again, maybe this was written as a feature film and then produced as a short film, so they had to cut things out. Because it does feel like there are places where it suffers because of time. It feels like there's a few moments where I have zero idea how many days have passed in this story. Yeah. This could be 3 days it could be 3 months.
Months and months, yeah.
It's really hard to tell, and it just feels like it jumps ahead sometimes in the story without being super clear about what had happened. And I do think the dad bank robber stuff feels like it's throwing it in a different direction. I agree that at times it felt like, which obviously it's supposed to, the Ultra Gorgon is alive, which because of the storyteller and the Jim Henson Hour feels acceptable in this world. Like watching a Jim Henson thing and the creature is alive. Yeah, sure. That makes sense. But I think overall, it just feels a little bit like they had to just rip some pages out of the script.
I'd be curious to read the book it's based on.
Same, especially because the book came out in the 70s, like 1979. So it obviously wasn't inspired by Jim's Creature Shop, but it is coincidentally about a creature shop kind of place in London. So I'm guessing it's maybe more on some more old school Hollywood type of monster movies. But that was, the opening of this is Matt at the movie theater watching one of Chancey Bellows' creature features. And that was one of the cooler things we've seen on the Jim Henson Hour, I think. I think while I didn't necessarily believe the movie within a movie was like a real movie, I don't think it was that convincing. I think it was weirder and in this like this in-universe kind of thing where I wanted to know who those two actors were who were playing the aliens or whatever in that movie, in a movie.
Being menaced by the big creepy teeth guy.
Yeah, and just wondering, like, when did they shoot that? Like, how was Jim Henson on set for that? Was he helpful in this? Like, how much? It just felt really different from anything else Jim has kind of done before.
Yeah,
and so it made me curious at the start of where this was going to go, and just I don't know. I think overall interesting. I think it does play well with the idea of Jim Henson's Creature Shop and knowing what we know about Jim Henson's Creature Shop.
I think it did a good job of making that because maybe at face value, like a kid works at a place where they make puppets doesn't sound like the most exciting thing maybe, but I feel like it did do a good job of like making that shop feel alive. And those two people who worked with him, I was kind of like, are we going to learn more about these two people? Like, it seems like they're dropping little hints about them and we don't learn anything. But yeah, spending more time with them in that shop would be fun. And yeah, seeing some of the other movies he made, like if it was a TV show or something, like every episode, maybe you'd see like a little like, and I did this effect for this thing. And it was some other weird little clip.
Yeah, definitely. I had that feeling, like I said, of I would watch this show. Like, and I didn't just mean the Jim Henson Hour being like this. But I think if Monster Maker was a show...
Puppet Man. Instead of Puppet Man, they had made this.
Creature Man.
Yes.
But yeah, I think this is something I would watch because I'd be interested to see, like you said, Periwinkle, who is the woman who works in the shop, and Ben, who gets a less fun name.
Yeah. The Chancey, Periwinkle, and Ben.
I guess you need like a normal name to balance like out Chancey and Periwinkle.
Inky, Blinky, Pinky, and Clyde.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Ben's the Clyde.
Yeah.
But I know the woman, Alison Steadman, who played Periwinkle, is one of those people who I think to British people is very familiar because she's been in...
Because everybody's familiar there because not that many people live there.
Well, she's just been in hundreds of things.
Oh, yeah. She looks really familiar.
Very few that I have heard of. So that's not, putting her down in any way. That's me saying I am unfamiliar with British television.
Matt's not British.
Also, Sam, have you watched Ted Lasso?
Yes.
All of Ted Lasso?
Yes.
Do you know Jamie Tartt's dad, the piece of shit?
Maybe I haven't actually watched all of Ted Lasso. I think that's one of those shows that Rachel will watch the first few episodes of every season, and then I'll wander in and be like, I guess I'll watch this too.
Okay.
So I did maybe miss that.
Okay. Well, Jamie Tartt has a dad.
Okay.
Who is, as a character, you don't like him. You don't want you don't
I
root for him
recognize
anyway.
him. I looked him up. Yes.
Yes. He is played by Kieran O'Brien, who played Matt Banting in Monster Maker. So this little boy,
he grew up to be a bad dad himself.
Yeah, look at that. Continued the cycle. What a shame.
I used to be something. I used to make the Ultra Gorgon. Does he say that in Ted Lasso? That line makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, when they bring up the Ultra Gorgon in Ted Lasso.
Your brother, the Ultra Gorgon, would never act this way.
So yeah, that's the thing is like all of these people have been in a bunch of stuff
Right.
That you've probably seen. And they all come together to make Monster Maker, which is it the best Jim Henson Hour?
Is it the best Jim? Yeah, I think it may be. It feels the most like normal TV. I think in a good way.
Yeah,
I think Muppet Television tends to throw everything off. I think Miss Piggy is a pretty good one, but I think it has so much history behind it that it doesn't really stand alone as an episode of the Jim Henson Hour.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, so to run through, we had the Louis Anderson Heartless Giant episode, which we did not love. We had Ted Danson and Lighthouse Island, which we liked Lighthouse Island, but Muppet Television still didn't win us over.
I did like Lighthouse Island quite a bit.
Then we had the Storyteller, Soldier, and Death, and the Today Show Muppet Television segments.
Right.
Then we had Dog City, which was, again, mostly Dog City, but still some Muppet Television mixed in there. Then we had First Show, which was the Bobby McFerrin, Miss Piggy's Holiday episode, and now Monster Maker.
Yes, I think this one is the best one. I think you're right. I think if I was Jim, I'd take a step back and go, this is what I was thinking the whole time. And Muppet Television just stands as like a very clear example to me, I would assume, of executive interference, of being like, nobody wants to do this. Just throw up the green screen and we'll get some puppets out here.
Yeah, I know this is supposed to be sort of an anthology show, even though they didn't want to call it an anthology show.
Right.
And I also get why they didn't call it an anthology show, because I think you'd be expecting more things like this.
Yeah, it's not really enough of one. I think you're right.
And so every episode does feel like a pilot for a new, different show. And so far, we as pretend TV network execs would not have picked up any of those shows probably.
Right.
Until now.
But if Jim could say, I can make you 12 movies just like this every year.
Yeah.
And I'll be in the beginning and the end. And I'll say, here's my puppets. What do you think? I would say, all right, I'll give this kid a chance.
I also love the idea of him making things that are sort of about himself, if that makes sense.
Well, he didn't. So like you said, he didn't really have that much to do with this, right?
Well, I'm sure he approved it. I'm sure he said we should make this. I'm sure at some level he is responsible for it existing. But he did not necessarily have a hand in the actual creation of it.
Yeah.
He wasn't on set. It's written and directed by people who had not worked with Muppets before, just some British filmmakers and writers.
Right.
So this felt like maybe something that wasn't made in your typical Jim Henson way. It was made more like the Jim Henson Creature Shop was hired to make creatures for this movie, but then it's produced by Duncan Kenworthy. The music's by the same woman, Rachel Portman, who did music for The Storyteller. So it's like a perfect marriage of taking somebody else's project and adding like enough storyteller pieces to it to make it make sense in this place.
Right. It did feel there were a lot of moments where it felt a lot like a storyteller, but in a good way, because I like Storyteller quite a bit. There's just like a good coziness to Storyteller and Storyteller adjacent stuff that feels important to me. I think there's a lot of Jim stuff that's very self-reflexive these days, or self-reflective, even if it's like stuff that he didn't even write. Because I feel like we've said that before, where it's like Kermit's really like, Jim must be going through it, but Jim didn't write the stuff where Kermit's going through it. So either like whoever wrote it's going through it, or they're seeing Jim and thinking like, what an interesting place you're in your life, Jim.
Like, do you think he's going to notice we're just writing his life story?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's kind of brave to be like, I wrote this script about a cranky old puppet man. What do you think?
I mean, if it's Jerry Jewell, maybe they're laughing that off and think it's funny.
Yeah.
If it's a younger, new, fresh-faced writer, maybe he's pushing things a little too far.
Yeah. And the fact that it's based on a book, but I would assume that the book, I don't know, I'd be interested to read it to see if some of that cranky old man stuff comes across, or if whoever wrote this script was like, this is about a man who forsook his family to start a company. It's like, hey, wait a minute.
There's definitely something in there deeper that we don't get to hear about because Chansey's not the main character. But I already bought the book on
Well, of course you did.
Well, yeah, but I will let you know when I read it in like 3 years when what actually happens in that.
Just from the description, it sounds pretty different.
Yeah. Again, I think some of that's just the timing, because this is very clearly Jim and his team sort of taking the knowledge they have of their own creature shop and putting that into this.
Yeah. And then thinking, well, what if we got robbed by bank robbers?
Yeah, from my giant vault of cash that I keep behind my desk.
This is kind of what Puppet Master is about, but there would be a fun movie to be had of people breaking into a Jim Henson creature shop type place and getting murdered by creatures. Yes,
which is at some point sort of what you think could happen in this. Like it seems like while there is I don't know, wizardly is maybe the term I would say for this Ultra Gorgon.
Wizard of Osley.
Well, yes, even more so. But at first, I think he's sort of warm, sort of inviting, but also definitely menacing under the surface.
Right. He's got a dark secret. You just don't know what it is. Kind of a heart of gold, but also he's made a pact with something evil.
Yes. Speaking of the Ultra Gorgon, it was apparently built in a disused church. This building here is an old church. And apparently they had to design and build this entire thing in 5 weeks.
Just like even saying, we're going to build a giant 2-story tall dragon puppet for a made-for-TV movie is like, I don't know anybody who'd say, great idea. Here's a bunch of money.
Well, and this thing is so impressive. It's like purposefully unfinished, obviously. Part of that was the plan, but also apparently part of it was they just started building, and the plan was to build until they ran out of time because
that's cool.
They knew it could look unfinished and be okay for the special, but they also wanted to get at least some of it done.
That's really smart.
Yeah.
Like,
they apparently started at the
like
feet
shit. It's on
like
purpose.
we're working their way up. And I'm assuming the face was also part of the first part because you need the face. But they said that the wings arrived 3 nights before production began. But it moves so well. Like I think if you saw this, at a Disney park, like if you were riding a ride and this thing came around a corner at you, it's just so very imposing and impressive.
I think another part that kind of failed me a little bit was Chansey seems to be somebody who has forsaken everyone, and like he presents himself as somebody who's forsaken everyone in his life to follow his career, except he's got 2 best friends who he works with all the time. And the story that he tells about the origin of wanting to be alone forever, it's so fucking weird that I was just like, is this gonna come back, or like, does it turn out he married this woman he was in love with or something? Because the story is that when he was 6 years old, he was in love with an 18-year-old, and he told his brothers, and they made fun of him. And he was like, I'm never telling anyone anything ever again. And even when he tells that story, Matt's kind of like, what? And then Chansey's like, fine. And then like storms off. He's like, do you understand what I'm saying? And Matt's kind of like, no, but I'm going to say yes anyway. And he's like, but that's such a weird story. Instead of like, I don't know if that's in the book or what, but it could have been like, I had a partner and he stole my idea or something like that. Instead of I was 6 and I was in love with an 18-year-old.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where the story itself doesn't work in this current version, but the overall, story of Chansey's life as he sees it, which I think the ending ruins a little bit, but he sees it as what he offers to Matt as the Ultra Gorgon of like, if you forsake your family and that life and give yourself over to special effects and focus just on this, you can be rich and famous.
Yeah.
And I think he's offering that to Matt because he believes that's what has happened to him.
Okay.
Like at first, when I was not sure if the Ultra Gorgon was alive or not, I was like, oh, Chansey must have taken this deal from the Ultra Gorgon, and that's how he got where he is.
Yeah.
And then when it's revealed that Chansey just is the Ultra Gorgon, and he's the one offering that deal to Matt, I'm like, oh, so he must believe that about his own life. That the only way he got where he was by forsaking his family.
Which I think there is definitely, like, if you want to do something creative or do something outside of the ordinary, there is a certain element of like, you need your time alone working on stuff. You're living your life a little bit different than other people. You're down in the basement doing something while other people are upstairs having fun. But it doesn't bear out, I suppose, because I never think I didn't look at him and think this is a lonely, lonely man. He's just a little bit grumpy and he hangs out with two nice British people.
I think what would have helped is if at the end Matt and his dad ran away from Chance Effects and Chancey stayed behind.
Mm-hmm.
But instead he's like, all right, you guys need to ride home.
He didn't even say anything on the ride home. I really thought they'd be like, and this is what we learned. We learned our lesson.
Also, Matt's dad drove to the warehouse.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
He brought his own van. So
like
at some
his car
point,
didn't explode or anything.
they will have to come back and get his van.
Yeah.
But yeah, when the Ultra Gorgon is trying to convince Matt to give up everything, what he says is, you're special. You don't need other people. What have they ever done for you? Nothing. Mm-hmm. Forget your family. Forget your friends. That's the only way to find success.
But I just think if the story that he told hadn't been about the being 6 and instead had been, I had to make this sacrifice. I lost a woman I loved because I was working too hard or something like that.
Or even simpler, it could have just been Matt's story of, I was making my weird monster puppets in my room and my brothers destroyed them and my dad never liked what I did. They kicked me out of the house or whatever. But
that's true. They're already telling that story. You're right, Matt. You're right.
Like, he could have essentially told Matt's story and been like, does that sound familiar?
I guess. Or even Chancey could have been like, yeah, you don't have to be a dickhead to do this job. Like, you don't have to push everybody away. I have employees.
Which feels like would be the next day if you're imagining where this story goes from here on, because he's like just willing to drive Matt and his dad home after he just threatened to kill his dad.
Yeah.
That like, okay, so is the next day just like, oh yeah, forget all that. You can still work here. It's fine.
Right.
I did the same thing to Periwinkle and Ben. They've been through all of this.
I tried
it's
to
okay.
Kill their dads too.
Yeah. If I don't try to kill your dad, you don't actually work here.
Yeah. If he had said, yeah, do it. Chancey Fry would have just been like,
rush.
I think he would have been like, come on, man. I'm not going to kill your...
No one's ever said yes before.
Kill your dad. But I think also his dad, I don't know. I'm shitting on it a little bit, but I did have fun watching this. But also his dad is a bank robber. So it is kind of like, if I had to pick between famous, I want to keep saying martial artist, famous effects artist, or
that's the second episode. He reveals that he also knows karate.
Yeah, or bank robber dad. I think that I'd be like, well, I'm not growing up in a good environment, so I think I'll hang out with the special effects artist instead. I will forsake my family.
Well, and that's, I think some of this too is that I understand why Matt wants to sort of run away. Like, his hero lives nearby. He gets a chance to meet him. His parents suck. But there are times when I feel like his family sucks a little less and he ramps up his like teenager, I hate you and everything you stand for. You're stupid and useless, to a degree where I'm like, okay, I don't know if that deserved that reaction.
Right.
Like,
well, yeah, and he is skipping school and lying about how old he is and stuff like that too.
They're essentially the parents, almost like literally as far as like the jobs and everything, from Matilda, where in Matilda the dad like has a used car dealership and he sells lemons intentionally,
right? And
the mom is like, I sit on the couch and eat bonbons and watch TV all day, and that's what this is essentially.
Bonbons. What have you ever had a bonbon before?
I don't actually know if I even know what a bonbon is, but that is the reference that I know.
Yeah.
But that's essentially, his mom just sucks because all she does is watch TV. His dad sucks because he doesn't believe in his dream and feels like Matt should like work a normal mechanic job. And he also is shitty right away, where he like he's like, oh, Matt starts school tomorrow. Thank God.
Thank God. Oh, in earshot of his son.
Yeah.
And his mom is actually not that shitty.
She doesn't seem shitty. Like, I think she defends the dad more than she should.
My husband's a bank robber. That sucks. Yeah.
I think she's like inattentive. Like, she doesn't seem like she wants to necessarily hang out and do things for her son,
Right.
but she doesn't seem like she's actively shitty like the dad is.
Yes. Like if it was me, I would just freeze my dad out and go for my dreams through my mom, probably.
Yeah, like I feel like you could have had a touching moment when the mom realizes there's one of the parents has a little bit more, rather than just the dad only seems to come around once he's had his life threatened.
Sure. And there's no guarantee he's not going to keep being a bank robber.
No, he seemed pretty shitty. I think there's a lot of work to undo there. But yeah, this thing in general looks really good because it's shot on film, and I think it's a really harsh contrast to Muppet television.
Yeah,
just the that 80s
true. That's
video
the coziness
blue screen
that I'm thinking of, huh?
Yeah, it's foggy. It's London. It's just cozy, and like even the shitty pixelated version we watch on YouTube still feels cozy and warm.
Yeah.
So going through this a little bit, just to hit some points that maybe we haven't already. I think we've talked around this special quite a bit. But yeah, Chancey Bello is Harry Dean Stanton, who breaks down, or he runs out of gas in front of his biggest fans' gas station.
Mm-hmm.
I like this little like Eminem Stan moment that we get where Matt is writing his 6th letter to Chancey Bello that has gone unanswered.
So does Chancey, is this an accident or is Chancey there on purpose?
Oh, I think it's an accident.
Okay.
I don't think, if there was like a little wink when he comes in asking for paint thinner, that would maybe make me think he was there to recruit this kid, or at least meet this kid who loves him so much. But I don't think he has any idea who this kid is when he goes into the garage.
Okay.
That might have been a nice twist. A little bit more Wizard of Ozzy, where he's like a little bit of like, oh, hey, are you the one sending me those letters?
Yeah, he's got the return address, I'd assume.
I think they could have done that very easily with like a slight little twist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could even imply that he left his credit card on purpose because the kid would come find him.
Right.
But I don't think that's in here.
I guess his hesitance to like hire him or anything like that. And he doesn't know what his stuff looks like. Yeah, I guess it's just a coincidence.
And they don't do enough of
in a small country like England, you know?
Well, they don't do enough of the I see myself in you. I think you've really got something here.
That's true.
There's a couple moments of that, but I don't think they do that enough to make it seem like Chancey has always been looking. It's not a Willy Wonka situation.
Yeah, he does it through the Ultra Gorgon to some extent, but not really like face to face.
I like the moment when Matt brings the mechanical legs to the warehouse, and at first you think Periwinkle just steals them, and he has to yell, "Give me back my legs!"
Yeah. A lot of this felt like I don't know why that moment in particular felt like this, but it felt like I could feel myself on Saturday morning watching like The Mouse and the Motorcycle, you know, or like renting like Encyclopedia Brown or something from Blockbuster and like watching that kind of just like a classic TV movie that is so warm and snuggly and like goofy. But yeah, I think her vibe and his friend's vibe and the part where he's like, check out my top of the line burglar alarm, stuff like that was just like, yeah, this is classic goofy kids TV stuff.
I mean, maybe there is just, sort of this era, I mentioned like Matilda, Mouse and Motorcycle. I think that is sort of in this like Roald Dahl kind of world.
Yeah, like dark kids book kind of thing.
Yeah, that this totally folds into that same world. And I don't know if all of this author's work fits that bill. I know he wrote like other sci-fi type of stories. But yeah, it feels like it's right in conversation with that era. There's a weird line that Harry Dean Stanton says when he's first meeting the kid. And his team's like accusing him of being jealous of the kid's work. He's like, why would I be jealous? When I was his age, I was chasing after Dolly Flanagan's mammary glands and having a great time.
I forgot about that. Mammary glands.
Yeah, which was unpleasant to hear. And also
this
one of those things
never
where
seen any tits before.
Yeah, nothing else in this special feels like that. So there's just the one line where if you're like watching this with your kid, where you're like, oh man, now I got to explain this.
Don't worry about it.
Thankfully, Matt does have the mechanical legs with him that work perfectly for slurks, I think is the word they use.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I thought about including that in my thing, and then I was like, meh.
Yeah, it's a word that they say, and you're like, I think they're saying slurk. Doesn't matter because it's a nonsense puppet word.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chansey needs help making the Slurks walk, which we do see later on. They make work. I don't know if Matt will get any credit or money outside of the original $500 his dad stole.
Because we don't know if he still works there or not.
Matt does lie to Chansey about how old he is, saying he's 16 when he's actually 14, which feels like it would be a bigger deal somewhere in this special, but really it just leads to the dad being able to blackmail Chansey a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Chansey's kind of just like, I don't fucking care, which I guess is fair. Like, what else are you going to do? He probably should have got his paperwork. Like, he probably didn't have to fill out a W-2 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he offers him the job, Matt's like, this is a dream come true. And Chansey's like, no, this is, and shows him the Ultra Gorgon.
I wrote that line down and then I deleted it because I do like when he said, like the line, this is a dream come true. No, it's not.
Yeah.
That is like how getting jobs actually is. Because it is like, I finally get to work at Disney or something. And then you show up to work at Disney and you're like, fuck, this is just like working everywhere else. This sucks.
Yeah. But to me, again, this is sort of that Willy Wonka, which again fits right in with all of that tone of children's thing.
Right.
Of the what happened to the man who suddenly got everything he always wanted. He lived happily ever after.
Right.
I'm feeling a lot of Wizard of Oz and
but
Willy
like what
Wonka
did happen to Chansey? Like Chansey presents himself as a tragic figure, but not really. He's rich.
I guess
and he's got friends.
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe it does expand on that more in the book because he does seem miserable. But if he's trying to lead Matt into this life and he has like a vault full of money and he seems to like his coworkers well enough.
Yeah.
What is the problem? Why is he so mad?
Right. And
maybe he's just stressed from work, but
maybe so. There's something like, oh, I can't get the Ultra Gorgon right and it's torturing me forever or something like that.
Like there's one last thing like that doesn't quite work with this.
Yeah.
They talk about the mouth a little bit, and I wasn't entirely sure what was going on with the mouth conversation.
Right, because he's like, Periwinkle fixed it instantly, which is also kind of like, you need input from other creative partners, and I get input from other creative partners.
Yeah, and they spend a good amount of time talking about just the life and beauty of the Ultra Gorgon, and I enjoyed that moment with the two of them. Too. But there is a part of it where they're talking about the mouth specifically that I couldn't quite figure out what the hell they were talking about.
Right. But yeah, the like to make an effective monster, you have to show people aspects of themselves. That was a nice conversation.
Yeah, and Jim sort of wraps it up at the very end, talking about how at the creature shop we try to imitate life, but he stresses we never even come close to replicating life. Yeah, which was a weird thing that I'm sure his creature shop builders love to hear.
Well, I don't know. I think I know what he's saying.
I do too.
Which is like it's effortless for one animal to act like an animal, but it takes 9 people to get even to like. And if you looked at this puppet next to an animal, you'd be like, "That's not real." Right. So I don't think anybody would deny it. But
I do think there is also something. Cause I feel like we've seen now 2 or 3 examples of this. We've talked about how sort of like where Jim is at in his life and how that's sort of seeping into the work. There's a lot of people and heart and real hard work is what matters that he keeps coming back to in this, mechanical creatures could never take the place of real life. And, CGI Muppets will never have the heart of a real Muppet. And it just feels like something he's sort of wrestling with right now that he's not fully coming out and saying, but keeps coming back to a little bit of like, don't let go of like the heart and the life of real things.
Yeah, right. And he has been talking a lot about computers not being able to make art and stuff like that too.
Which again, with the changing technology, who knows where he would have landed on some of that stuff. But it does, as much as Jim Henson Hour doesn't necessarily give us a lot of the kind of entertainment we're looking for in some ways, I think it does give us some insight into Jim's career at this point.
It's a direct look into his weird brain.
And again, he's not writing this, so it's also maybe something that somebody else is seeing in him, or that they're feeling like within themselves, and we're just reading way too much into.
Probably that one, but we have been talking about this guy for a couple of years, so
Almost, it's coming up on 5 years.
I cannot believe that.
Early next year, it'll be 5 years we've been talking about Muppets and Jim Henson.
It doesn't feel like that at all to me.
No, I was looking up an episode the other day that I thought, I would have sworn was a few months ago, and it was over like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So no concept of time for this podcast.
This fool made a lot of stuff.
And we have to watch all of it. Matt just doesn't seem to ever go to school, which I feel like is maybe something they would not let happen in a modern children's show. Like,
yeah,
the importance of education, I think, would be stressed a little bit more on network TV, or there might be repercussions for it, because this seems like a little bit of just, he gets a cool job, and I don't think he needs school.
In TV, it's so easy to skip school. It's not that easy in real life, I don't think. Is it? I never really skipped that much school.
Me neither, especially not in the 80s. And I don't know how much easier it was back then.
Yeah.
Ferris Bueller made it look pretty easy.
He did. He went and had a whole day of it. I skipped senior skip day. I think that's the only day that I skipped.
If you didn't, you'd be a real dork.
A real loser. That would be so... the teachers would be like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I feel like I had some of that during like senior year, during those weeks where some people had like gotten all of their tests and credits out of the way so they could take like a full week off. And no repercussions, that I didn't do that. And I'd be like the only person sitting in the newspaper room, because I worked on the school newspaper. And it'd be like me, 2 people, and like our journalism teacher being like, all right, what should we do?
Yeah, he does that. So they seem to make a big deal out of their state-of-the-art security system that they've got in this place.
Yeah.
But like the guy is like the employee guy, Ted or whatever. It's
Ben.
like, I built this. And they're like, great. And it rings. But it doesn't seem like it's hooked up to the police station in any way.
Well, and the guy just crowbars it off at the end.
Yeah, when they break in, they just smash it up with a crowbar and it stops working.
And the password to get into the Ultra Gorgon room was the opening of the U.S. national anthem.
The tone. Yeah, right. British people don't know that, though.
No, that's how you get a security in England. One thing that I thought for sure was going to be something, when I still thought there was like some magical things going on in this, was when the thieves break into the safe, there's a gold human skull on top of the money.
What? There's a couple things sprinkled throughout this whole thing that you're like, this could pay off into something weird. That skull was not in there when he opened it earlier.
It's like he put it in there like, maybe that'll scare him off.
Ooh. Yeah, British people are a cowardly, superstitious lot.
They don't know the U.S. national anthem, and they hate human skulls.
They're so scared of golden skulls. Is that what it was?
Specifically, yeah. But then the thieves go in to rob the place. They see the Ultra Gorgon. They're like, I bet we could steal this.
What a crazy thing to think. Where are you going to fence it? What are you going to do with it?
I think there's a lot of pipes and hydraulic fluid and stuff in there. You can probably get.
So they're stripping it for copper wires and stuff like that.
Melt down the latex.
That makes sense. Sure.
But the Ultra Gorgon winks at them and then engulfs them in flame.
It's like 5 times bigger than their van, too. Like, I know that their plan is to get it piece by piece, but why?
Maybe they're going to do the opposite of what the Creature Shop did and just unbuild as much of it as they can until they get caught.
That's true. Also, setting people on fire, that's got to be a risky proposition. You don't know that they're not going to die. Did he not care?
I don't think he cared. They were stealing thousands of dollars from him.
That's true.
I think he was okay with that.
Yeah.
It made me miss real fire with real Muppets a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
The days of the LaChoy Dragon scarily spraying fire at people. This is a little bit of a composited fire plume. So, but yeah, I think it does wrap up sort of conveniently once the Ultra Gorgon / Chansey threatens Dad, and Matt's like, hey, put him down. He's like, I thought you hated him. He's like, yeah, he's still my dad. Please don't kill him.
Please don't murder my dad. I don't want to watch him die in front of me.
No. That really messed me up.
You boys need a ride home? Okay.
And that's it. The camera lingers on the Ultra Gorgon for a minute. That made you think it's going to wake up and be alive, but it isn't.
Its wings kind of move a little bit.
I think that could just be
the door closing
the
or
HVAC
something.
system.
Yeah.
So then they drive off, and it's just a weird shot of these 3 men hanging out in the car. Matt's in the front seat instead of his dad. And there's a shadow of the Ultra Gorgon flying over them.
These burglars are going to come back for more, too. You know?
Not if a giant dragon might kill them.
You don't think so?
Nah.
I guess so.
All right, Sam. So, I mean, Monster Maker wasn't really a Muppet thing, it feels like, but what other non-Muppet things did you enjoy this week?
I've been being not much of a media intaker lately, but I'm so excited to start watching Christmas movies. I have a whole list of crappy Netflix Christmas movies I want to watch. And we're just kind of like burning through a bunch of TV shows that we always watch that are kind of just not really worth it. We watch Elsbeth. We watch a lot of like old person mystery shows. You know Elsbeth?
I don't know Elsbeth at all.
It's like a continuation of the Good Wife franchise. You know The Good Wife?
I am only familiar with it mostly because you have talked about it on this podcast.
That's a Good Wife's a good show. Good Fight's a good show. Elsbeth is like it's like Columbo. It's the lady who's like super intuitive and she helps solve crimes and it's like a different big celebrity guest every week is the murderer. And that's a pretty fun show. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless you're a 75-year-old woman like I am. Rachel's been watching Supernatural, which I've talked about before, but I continue to be very impressed by Supernatural. I think it's a pretty good show, but I just haven't been doing that much outstanding movie or anything watching.
I feel like this world of The Good Wife is one that I am so unfamiliar with, but it just keeps creeping up and it keeps existing and there's so much spin-offs of it. It's like Grey's Anatomy where it's like somebody will be like, oh yeah, I'm watching the new season of Grey's Anatomy. I'm like, the new season?
Yeah. That's still on, right? That's crazy.
I think so. I think it just exists outside of my brain because I've never watched it. And so in my head, that is a 20 years ago show. Yeah. And it is true that it is a 20 years ago show, but it is also a Today show.
Right. Can you imagine rewatching that series and be like, well, here's Sam, 6 months of my life or whatever?
We are not the people to say, can you imagine going back and watching 20 years of a show? It's going to take 6 months of your life. Sam, we've been doing this for almost 5 years.
I know,
and we're like halfway through.
It feels different to me, Matt, but you're right. You're right. I shouldn't cast aspersions. That's true. But it's like get done with it and then be like, time to queue up Grey's Anatomy.
It is overwhelming. It is like, thinking about going back and rewatching The Simpsons from the start now. You're like, oh boy, that's a lot of Simpsons.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting close to rewatching Mad Men, and that is like take a step back, look in the mirror, and think, do I need to?
I have restarted that series multiple times, Sam, because it's not streaming anywhere except for like AMC Plus or something. Yeah. And so I purchased that series years ago on Apple TV.
Right.
And it sits in my library. I'll watch a season or two, and then I'm kind of good for a while. And I think I've done that probably 3 or 4 times.
It's just a fun world to live in. And the ending's so perfect that it's like, there's some shows where the ending sucked and you're just like, I don't need to watch that again. But that one, you kind of got to just commit to the end, I would say. But no, I don't know. I need some suggestions if you want to get on the Discord and tell me something to do with my life. I'm really just waiting for the new Kirby game to come out like next week. So I haven't been playing a lot of video games. I've been done with Donkey Kong forever. The Switch just needs more video games because that's the only one I have time to play. How about you? What have you been doing?
I've actually been getting into Dimension 20, the Dropout D&D show for the first time.
Okay.
They have a new season called Cloudward Ho, which is sort of like steampunky. And I have tried to get into Dimension 20 before. I've watched some episodes here and there, but it's just never really hooked me. Mostly just because the episodes are like 2.5 hours long. And so it's just like a big time commitment to actually keep up with the story. But I always enjoy the clips I see on social media. And I've been seeing a lot of clips from this most recent season that they're doing that I was finally like, okay, this season does not have like a bunch of previous seasons that need to lead up to it. I can just watch this one without having known anything else from any of their other series.
Right.
And so I dove in and I'm loving it. It'll probably make me go back and watch more. But for now, very much enjoying Dimension 20 Cloudward Ho.
Yeah, I started listening to Not Another D&D podcast, and I really like that one. I don't listen to a lot of live play stuff, but I started to recently, so I can...
I've listened to the McElroys, like for their Adventure Zone things for most of those seasons, but it really, again, the time commitment of it being a visual show and having to sit and watch something for 2.5 hours. Like I definitely don't sit and watch all of it at once. It is broken up across baby feedings and dishes and chores. But yeah, no, I'm really enjoying it.
I started listening to Doughboys. You ever listen to that show?
Again, something I've seen clips of, but never actually listened to.
I've never really listened to it, even though that they're like one of the big podcasts in the area of podcasts I listen to. But I've been listening to that and be like, fuck, we're not very good at podcasting.
Hey, I don't think that way, Sam.
We're not far off, but sometimes I just go on a run and I'm like, you guys have been doing this for 20 years.
Well,
like,
there's also a difference between a podcast whose goal is comedy and a podcast whose goal is to
that's true. I feel
watch
like we
everything the
split
Muppets have ever made.
I feel like we split the difference a little bit.
I mean, hopefully. Otherwise, what are we doing here, folks?
Over here. But it's such like the idea. Like, I think our ideas is fun, but their idea is so fun because who doesn't like to go get bad takeout food? Like, who doesn't like to go to a restaurant?
Well, I hope people still like this podcast and don't leave it to go listen to the Doughboys based on Sam's recommendation.
You can listen to both. Our podcast is fantastic. Genuinely top 5%. No, 2% in quality, I'd say. It's a good podcast, but
you heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
We're a good podcast.
We're a good podcast. Top 2%. Yeah.
Well, speaking of good podcasts, let's share what we'll be doing next time, because next time we are getting back to the Jim Henson Hour with episode 7 called Fitness, which features the much discussed Song of the Cloud Forest in its second half.
Are we in the part where it's airing way later?
I believe these are still airing in the summer of 1989. Okay. So these are still airing around the time, but the show has been canceled. They've been off the air for a few months, and now they're coming back.
Okay.
And we'll be joined by a special guest. He's a Tough Pigs writer, a Muppet Wiki admin, and the guy who helps us plan our Sesame Street episodes and shares newly found Muppet Wiki things in our Discord. It's Shane Keating.
I'm excited.
But we need to thank our friend Tuna for making the music for this podcast and Cassie Wilson for singing our theme song. Don't forget to go to commitment.com for all commitment needs. Rate and review this podcast, all those nice things you do for us. You can follow us on social media at commitmentpod or at commitment.com on Blue Sky. And you can always follow me at Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And as always, keep believing.
Keep pretending.